Hi kids, Miss Ruby here with another art lesson. Today we're going to be working on a chalk pastel still life. So still life means we're looking at a real life object that's not moving to get information about what to draw and where the light parts of this are and the dark parts are. You see even a little bit of shadow here. The lights and the darks, or the values, are what makes this object look three-dimensional. So you can see in my drawing here, it feels like you could pick that persimmon off of the paper. So in order to do that, we're really going to focus on drawing what we see and finding the values, or the lights and darks. So I like to start by getting to know my object. I have this beautiful persimmon here with a couple of its leaves that are changing to fall colors. And I want to start off with a nice light color pastel to do my sketch. So I want to start out by looking for the biggest things and getting an idea of the shapes that I see. So the biggest thing I see is the shape of the persimmon fruit itself, and that looks mostly round. So I want to figure out where on my paper I want to put that. Okay, so I don't want to put it directly in the center. I'm going to put it a little bit off center to make my composition a little bit more interesting. And I see that these leaves can be part of the image too, and those can kind of go off of the paper. You see one going over there, one kind of going over here. So I also see that the leaves of the persimmon are kind of an important part of that object. And I'm looking at this from above, so the leaves and the stem are in the middle. Okay, and I see this one kind of extends out a little bit. So this would be very different depending on the angle. Again, I'm looking at it from above, but oftentimes when people are drawing an apple or something like this, they want to put the stem right on top. That's not what I see unless it's turned completely like this. And then I see the leaves and the stem are coming out of directly the top. As this turns, the place where that comes out changes. So as it turns, this is getting lower and lower and lower. And now it's almost in the center and I can see more of the fruit behind it. So if it was at this angle, the shape of the fruit itself is changing. It becomes a little bit more squat. And I see that the stem and the leaves are going to come out of the top quarter. But I do see some of the fruit behind it. So notice with your persimmon or your apple or your orange or whatever object you're working with, how the shape changes. Here, if I'm looking directly at it from the bottom, I don't see any of the details like the stem or the leaves. I just see a little dot in the center. And how that changes as it moves. Now it's kind of short and stout. Okay. And then we'll get back to where I was drawing it from, looking at the stem right in the center. So just keep in mind that when we're looking at an object like this, a pumpkin, an apple, the stem doesn't always come right out of the top. Okay, so oftentimes we'll see it, in the center or closer to the, about a quarter of the way down. So again, the way I'm looking at it, I'm going to put it back in the place where I was looking at it. The way I'm looking at it, the stem is kind of right in the middle. Okay, and then there's a leaf that extends outside of its shape, kind of making it a little bit more interesting. And then these other shorter leaves are within the form. So I'm doing a quick sketch to get an idea of where all the shapes are. It doesn't have to be perfect. I can draw right over it if I don't like something, but I want to really get a feel for what this looks like. I see it's not perfectly round. This part bumps out a little bit more. It has kind of a little indentation here, and then that kind of bumps out. So I'm just getting an idea of what this object looks like. I do this in a light pastel so that the color will blend in with the chalk sketch. Okay, so once I have a general idea of where my object is, where the most important shapes are, I can start thinking about the general values. So again, values are lights and darks. So this was a very light value I was using. Okay, the orange of the persimmon might also be a light value or a medium light. A red that I might use for the leaves is more of a medium. Purple is going to be a very dark value. We almost can't see it against the black of the paper. And I have some blues that are very dark as well. My browns might be a little bit lighter. They might be on this side of the value scale. So we're looking for lights, light, medium, and dark in our value scale. So I'm going to be using the medium or the medium light values first, and I'm going to fill in just a general idea of what color this has. It's also sometimes called local color, just the general color of the object. So I'm using this kind of yellow-orange color to fill in the color of the persimmon. And with these kind of chalk pastels, I can use the corner of the pastel to make a small line. I can use the end of it to make a medium line, or the side of it to make a big mark. Okay, so I'm thinking about the general shape. You'll notice as you're working with the chalk pastel that it creates a lot of dust. This can be moved or blended with your finger to fill in the dark of the paper or the color of the paper, whatever it is you're working with. This special pastel paper has a texture to it or a tooth to it that makes it a little bit bumpy and helps it to accept all of that dust. I noticed the main color of this leaf, or the local color, is kind of a red. So I'm going to fill that color in. Just a general idea. And I see that other leaf is kind of the same color. It's a little bit tricky to see on mine because it's in the persimmon's shadow, so I'll try to keep that out of the way. So everything's just getting a general idea of the color. I see that the leaves are generally green. I'm trying to kind of fill in my sketch as if I was filling in a coloring book, keeping an idea of where my lines were that I wanted to keep. So I've given everything a general shape or a general color, and what I've done is filled in my shapes. So when something is one color, it looks flat. For example, this leaf is one color, it looks flat. This persimmon is one color, it looks flat. So in order for us to make this look 3D, like my piece here, we need to think about where the lights and darks are. So I put my object in a sunny spot. So I see that the sun is coming from this direction, and it makes a light spot on this side. And I see this side is in shadow because it's not absorbing as much of the light. So I'm going to choose a dark value to fill in where I see my shadows. So I see that they're kind of dark shadows around the leaf. But it's not just a line, it's a shadow. It blends in to the actual object. We can see it's starting to look more 3D already. I can also use my browns to create a shadow color. Blue can be used for a shadow color. I could even mix red and green to create a shadow color. So you're welcome, just like with paints, to experiment with color mixing. So we see we're finding the shadow side of this object. I notice there's a pretty dark shadow on this side of the leaf. And you may have to make adjustments to your sketch as you go along. Like I see, oh wait, this leaf kind of goes off in this direction, and this is all in shadow. So we can always change things as we go along. The more we look at the object, the more we'll get to know it, and we'll see where the lights and the darks are and where the details are. So I see this part has some shadow to it. And I ask the object, okay, where are the light parts? Here, here. Where are the dark parts? Here, here. And then I fill those in accordingly on my sketch. See, there's kind of an interesting little shadow over here. And I'm being really gentle when I'm blending. And I can also, when I get a big buildup of extra chalk dust, just turn my paper and gently tap, hopefully onto a paper that's underneath to protect the table. So I'm going to go all over my drawing looking for the light parts and the dark parts. I see around the center of the persimmon and inside the folds of these leaves, it's pretty dark. So I could use a dark green or mix a dark green with a dark purple and make this object really look 3D. So I started with a medium value. I'm adding my dark parts in, and then as I go along, I can also look for the light parts. So I notice that this part of the leaf, let's get a light green, this part of the leaf is catching the sun, so it's pretty bright. And then as I'm going along, I might have to just bounce back and forth between the dark values and the light values as I'm seeing them. You see, this has a lot of light on it. I'm also looking for colors. I see that the end of this leaf is kind of yellowy. So I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow in with my green to try to catch that color. Same here, I see this is kind of yellowy. In my persimmon leaf, I see it's not just red. There's some green along the sides that kind of bleeds in, and that might blend in a little bit. I see it's pretty light on this side also. I see there's some yellow in this leaf as well, especially on the side that's a little bit brighter. And I can think about putting that in kind of a pattern so that it feels like it's picking up the details of the leaf. I'm also seeing a little bit of dark shadow here, and I might need to blend that in a little bit, or try to mix until I get the color that feels right. Again, I can use the corner or the point of the pastel to get some nice details. I see some cool veins in that leaf. And then I want to continue trying to find the light parts and the dark parts. So again, I noticed that this part was getting a lot of light. So I'm going to try to brighten that side up. And there's typically going to be a brightest part. The brightest part is called the highlight. So the highlight is going to be done probably with white, because that's the brightest part. I actually see 1, 2 highlights here. So it's going to be the brightest part, and I'm not really going to blend it, or not blend it much, because if I blend that, it just gets absorbed into the color that's next to it. So when I'm working with a highlight, I really want to lay down that brightest color, brightest value, and let it stay there and not blend it too much. I can also think about contrast. If that's really light, in order to make this feel more contrasty or have more difference between the light and dark, maybe this side will get a little bit darker. Maybe I'll mix in some red into this shadow, or a little bit more vibrant orange. These persimmons are known for their beautiful color, their beautiful vibrant orange. So it's starting to look and feel a lot more 3D already. So So the more values you can add, the better. The more differences between light and dark you can find, the more developed, the more defined your drawing is going to be. We can also think about creating contrast with the background. So contrast means using different colors or different values next to each other. So the opposite color of orange is blue. It's a complementary color. So I can think about creating a lot of contrast by choosing a complementary color. So the complementary colors are blue and orange, red and green, yellow and violet. So you can see that by setting off this persimmon with a contrasting color, it really jumps off the page. If I used a similar color, like here I had red next to red, those leaves don't stand out anymore. But if I choose a different color or a contrasting color, you can see it really makes them stand out. So I'm thinking about dark colors for my shadows. And I love the way the shadows on the paper really set off the object and also connect it to its background. So I want to include the shadows that I see around the object. So here I'm making that a really dark color, but a shadow doesn't have to be black. I like to use color rather than just black. So I'm using a little bit of dark blue, a little bit of purple to really set off the color of the persimmon. And again, you could mix your own color. I could put a little bit of green into this. I could put a little bit of light blue into this. And it doesn't all have to be blended. It could be kind of a mix of colors back there. So the more contrast you find, the more difference between light and dark, the more 3D your object is going to be. The more details, the more difference in value you can include, the more developed and beautiful your drawing will be. Hope you guys enjoy this lesson. Have fun. Miss Ruby here again with a note on cleanup and finishing your drawing. So if you think you're all done, you can spend another couple minutes looking at your object, looking at the drawing, looking at the object, looking at the drawing. And once you think you're totally finished, you don't notice any differences or anything you missed, we're going to give this a little bit of spray fixative. So I use just hairspray because it's non-toxic, but what this fixative does is it keeps the dust down. So I'm going to tap the rest of the dust off and just really lightly give this a spray. It looks like it's getting darker, but the color will come back. And what this does is it makes it so that the dust won't just come off. So if you're returning your drawing to school, I will do this for you. And if you have questions about how to do this at home, just let me know. So when we're cleaning up our chalk pastels, I like to put warm colors with warm colors and cool colors with cool colors. This helps to keep them from mixing around too much and all turning to brown. So I try to clean up that way, and I want to try to set up in a way that all this extra dust can be dumped into a trash can so it doesn't go on the table or into the air. If you are not going to spray fix your finished piece, you can take a nice piece of clean recycled paper, put that on top, and now you're ready to transport your drawing. Hope you guys had a good time. Bye.